good morning to you and welcome to Morning Express. My name is Trix Ingado. Happy Friday, and this is that show that is a Friday fun day show. Later on, toward the end, we shall have that sort of mood with Brian Aseli. But before that, our usual Friday panel is joining us to take a look at some of the biggest stories that have been making headlines. The BBI Signature Drive launch is one of the biggest ones. We shall be digging deeper into that and taking a look as well at what's making headlines into local and international news. So stay tuned for that and much more in the exciting show that we have planned for you today. But first, let's take a look at what's making headlines internationally, and we start off in neighboring Tanzania. That's telling us today about this has to do with, of course, they're giving us a tally of the regional tally of coronavirus pandemic numbers. Tanzania, of course, still at 509. We have Kenya at 80,102, while Rwanda at 5,851. Uganda right now is at 19,000, according to this website, 115. Apart from that, they're telling us about MTLF's focus is identifying and finding solutions to social problems. Mwananchi Communications Limited Acting Managing Director, pictured here, has said the decision to come up with Mwananchi Thought Leadership Forum was not only identifying challenges. Let's take a look at Uganda and see what's making headlines. On the Daily Monitor, we are told police foil Tanga Odoi's plan to block Bobi Wine in Totoro. The Odoi procession, it was reportedly an attempt to disrupt National Unity Platform flag bearer Mr. Robert Kianguli, that is Bobi Wine, and of course that has to do with the campaigns, the problems and the troubles that opposition leaders seem to be facing towards the run-up to that country's election. We shall see who shall be taking this one and how far some in leadership will go to block some of these opposition leaders. Now let's take a look at another paper. Bloomberg is next, and it's focusing on business both on the continent and internationally. Here we have AstraZeneca eyes extra global vaccine trial as questions mount. Then Swedes lose faith in the COVID-19 strategy with virus rampant. Merkel urges Germans to help stop the virus. Worst case scenarios, of course, as the whole world waits for those vaccines that have been said to be having a lot of promise. Let's take a look at the Guardian, that's based in the United Kingdom. We're told on the headlines, U.S. elections, Donald Trump says he will leave White House if Electoral College votes for Joe Biden. Now, of course, he will. Now, President's comments are the closest he has come to admitting defeat in election and set a stage for college votes on the 14th of December. Of course, he did actually come out on Twitter without necessarily conceding and said that they can do what must be done as they transition to the new regime that shall be led by Joe Biden, the president-elect. Now, we have for the first time, Trump says he'll go if Electoral College votes. That's the same story. And far from that, we have in a 5-4 ruling, Supreme Court sides with religious groups in a dispute over COVID-19 restrictions in New York. And then we also have another story that says indigenous people are fighting to reclaim what was stolen from them. The demand is simple, but it's been a centuries-long battle. Far from that, the story on the AstraZeneca vaccine is still making headlines on the CNN. Take a look at that if you want to learn more. Now, let's take a look at another paper that has been, that is giving us news from across the world. Al Jazeera paper, website, agency. AstraZeneca says its COVID-19 vaccine needs additional study. Of course, the greatest thousands of Argentinians say goodbye to Maradona. And also on our page 14 of the Standard, they're also paying homage to that football legend. Last but not least, we have the BBC this morning. Let's take a look at what they are leading with. Donald Trump, of course, but below here, you're told about Australia to sack troops over Afghan killings. There's another story that says Poland's battling for abortion, and then people have tracked down mystery Utah monolith. And then the Pope here is being featured on their weekly quiz. What went on with this Pope's social media? Take a look at that. Get yourself informed and entertained. But here in studio, we're taking a look at the stories that are closer to home. And joining me for the discussion is Gloria Orwoba, who is here in studio with me, a youth policy analyst, as well as Mark Bichachi, who's a communication consultant and political analyst, both regulars here on Morning Express. Welcome to the show, lady and gent.
Very much. judiciary.
Okay, now let's take a look at what's making headlines locally. We start off with the Standard this morning. We're told, Raila, I was not duped. This is what he's saying. That has to do with the said changes that were made as far as the IEBC is concerned. ODM leader issues a statement to reiterate his position on the referendum bill amid claims that he was kept in the dark as far as these changes are concerned. That has to do with the IEBC, the police and the judiciary. He had previously said no changes will be made on the draft bill, shutting the door on any lead up to a consensus. And I'll read this quote from his spokesman that says, "We wish to clarify that Mr. Odinga was party to the changes and in agreement with the content of the Constitution of Kenya Bill 2020. He used yesterday's event to make the point that not all views, including his, were accepted into the bill, and it should not be a reason for actors to oppose the process." Now, Mark, do you think this is just an attempt at presenting a united front, or is it indeed a fact that he was part and parcel of the process and the changes that were being proposed and made?
It's an interesting quandary, because the spin has always been that this document was written between Raila and Uhuru, and,
yes,
and they have always been the ones, the handshake is about two people. That's what people have always said. So it's interesting to see the same outlets now saying that Raila was excluded from the process. Now, it's really a question of conjecture here, because the question we have to really ask, and the question that matters, is, does Raila Odinga agree? Now, if he agrees to the changes that are there, which he has stated that he does, then it really doesn't matter whether he was part of it or not, because what that means is that he's going to support the BBI referendum, and that's the key question, whether we still have the support of one Raila Odinga on the BBI. But it also raises the question across the political divide, that who really is in control of this process. And clearly you can see the president playing the kingpin role and doing what he thinks is right and fair for the country, and trying to unite the people. So whether Raila was involved or not, for me it's a secondary issue. The real issue is, does he support it, and then what does that particular argument do to the argument that this document is a bedroom document between Raila and Uhuru. So I'm very curious to see what people who've been saying it's just about Raila and Uhuru will say now, because now it seems to be about Raila, Uhuru, Mudavadi, Ruto, and everyone else who wanted certain changes in that document. Will then they continue to say that this is a document that is not for the people and by the people?
Gloria, what do you make of this? Poll reform still on. This is ODM is insisting. According to the Daily Nation, a similar story, still on the same. IBC reform push are not over yet, is what they're saying. And quoting ODM, the deletion of controversial proposal is not the end of the quest.
Well, I think, first of all, this story, for me, what it brings out is that the transparency of how this procedure of the Building Bridges initiative has been, it's clearly very opaque. It's clearly, I keep saying there's a spirit of conmanship. And at first I thought the conmanship was just about, the task force and the drivers of the initiatives trying to, hoodwink Kenyans into pushing for constitutional amendments. But now it is very clear that the spirit of conmanship is even within, meaning this is not the first time that we have seen a kind of, shift in someone in that initiative basically saying that they were not aware. Because remember, retired Major
but Gloria, Raila says he was aware.
Yeah, he's been quoted saying that he was not aware, and he's come back to say that he was aware. There's always, same with Major Say. Remember, he also came out saying that, he appended his signature against a document that he had not read because he signed in trust. So it's, you kind of, there are tendencies. And it has been consistent with this kind of things, because there's no transparency in who is actually the driving force of certain matters. And remember, the things that are being pointed out now, it's they're talking about Raila didn't know about IBC
the reforms in the police.
The reforms in the police. So the key. So at the end of the day, you can almost see that even amongst the initiators or the drivers of this initiative, you can also see that they are trying to hoodwink each other. So, you know, for me, I knew that he would come out with a very strong statement, basically saying that that is not the case, and, you know, to show a united front, because that's the same way they tried to clean up when Major Say came out and said actually he didn't know that there was an expanded executive. So for me, it's a consistency in conmanship.
Okay. Well, for details, in order to understand what we are talking about, the amendments that you're talking about here, we have an amendment that will remove the judiciary from handling disputes arising from the nomination of candidates by political parties from IEBC and vest it in the political parties disputes tribunal. Mark, what do you make of that element, that amendment?
Well, you know, one of the things about the amendments that have been made, first, they do one thing. They dispel the myth of a monolithic presidency that is too powerful. So that's important. Number two, it invests a lot of the decisions in the people. So as far as that particular amendment is concerned for me, I think it's an amendment in the positive side of how things should be. But also, I just wonder really, and I'm really very confused, that how is it conmanship to solve a problem? And you know, I'm thinking about my house, and I find something wrong in my house, and without telling my wife I fix what is wrong, then will she come and say that she was conned because now the tap is no longer leaking? And you know, these are the kinds of narratives that, you know, when you say there's a spirit of conmanship and there's no science to it, there's no logic to it, you're just trying to fuel Kenyans' feelings and emotions. And you're wondering, this BBI report, was it a gift to be given to Raila that now he's getting half a gift? Or was it something, you know, those MPs, the women that will be put in parliament, were they Raila's women so that now it is Uhuru's women who are going to be nominated and therefore Raila has been conned? What exactly are we saying? You know, I wish we could have objective conversations. It's a prayer I have. Maybe one day we will get there as a country. But have objective conversations.
The virtue of you being on opposite ends of the issue, it makes it objective.
MPs, are they not to be MPs of people? Or are they going to be Raila MPs? You know, I'm very confused.
Mark, we'll double down on all this on the second half of this hour. But let's take a look at other stories that are making headlines. Now, there's one here that we're told on the, that is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Says, inside fresh plot to kick out Sonko. And they give us details that a phone call from State House, a meeting at the ODM, Raila Odinga's Capitol Hill office, sealed the fate of a beleaguered governor of Nairobi, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, setting in motion a fresh plan to remove him from office. And some insiders who are not being named here are saying it was not a matter of if, but when. Mark.
You know, let me tell you, I am personally celebrating the end of the prison prefect's reign. I am happy. Donald Trump is out. Sonko is on his way out. Waititu is out. It is a good day for sane politics in this country and across the world. Populist and populist movements, completely irreverent leaders should be stopped. If you looked at Sonko's social media the last couple of weeks, you know, he's absolutely unhinged. You know, when he signs a document and says he was drunk, when he goes and now begins to fight with Mbadi, when we can clearly see there's been a lot of improvement in the county, you know, it's ridiculous. So for me, the MCAs could not have done this sooner, and I hope the president this time has learned his lesson and is not going to save Sonko, and I hope that the cases in court will return the prison prefect to the place of his right jurisdiction.
Joy Brenda is joining us. Joy Brenda is a lawyer and also regular on Fridays. Joy, what do you make of Sonko's woes? They seem to be developed every other week. What say you about the latest?
There is something to be said about good governance, that
Yes.
in this country we have been sorely lacking in picking quality leaders because we put other considerations first, whether it's money, popularity, of some sort. And I'm glad that Kenyans have had real-life examples of how irresponsible leadership can affect the quality of our lives. So in terms of what is happening with Sonko, he has spent his entire time trying to fight for survival to stay in office while Nairobi has been suffering. Now, the introduction of NMS has alleviated that suffering to some extent, but has created a legal conundrum because the legal status of NMS is something that is a bit shaky. It is just embedded somewhere in the office of the president, but it's not really something that we can depend on moving forward.
Yes.
So for Sonko right now to be in a situation where he's fighting for political survival is something that I'm like Maki actually welcome it. Because frankly speaking, we have been treated to such a circus in Nairobi, this being the capital city of the country, this being the seat of power, not just that, being the seat of several international institutions. Honestly, we deserved better. But moving forward, I hope for not just Nairobians, but let's start with the political parties. How do we do our nominations? Who do we give our tickets?
Right.
Because this is not just an embarrassment for the Nairobi voter, it's an indictment of the Jubilee Party for giving a ticket to somebody like Sonko, and that he has been there for that long. So let us, moving forward, let us start by looking at the quality of leaders at the nomination stage, so that by the time we're coming to elections, we're not picking the best of the worst, but we're actually picking the best of the best. That's something that we need to change in our Kenyan politics.
Yeah, indeed, Nairobi was not the place for that. Some of the shenanigans. Joy, Gloria, do you agree with Joy's sentiment?
Unfortunately, this morning I don't agree with these sentiments because for me, when I hear people saying I'm happy, Trump is out, and now Sonko is... Trump is out by a democratic process. You understand? Sonko was voted in through democracy. We went and we casted our votes and we picked Sonko. And whether you like it or not, a majority of the Nairobians actually went and picked Sonko to be their governor. So for me, I don't want to spend time looking at the personality of the person, of the character in that sense. At this moment, I stand for democracy. And democracy means even if we are going to remove Sonko, we need to remove him in a democratic process. Okay. And I need to add that when you look at the genesis of that story, it talks about a call from State House and then a meeting at Capitol Hill at Raila Odinga's office. I mean, Raila is overworking, man. He's everywhere. Anything that is happening in this country, his finger is there. And he's too busy. He needs to focus on one thing. Because, again, you start asking yourself, what are the interests? It's like a man with no clear focus.
Gloria, before we pivot to Raila Odinga, what about MCAs going, ODM MCAs tabling a motion for Sonko's ouster? For me, that is undemocratic because I thought that's within the law.
Yeah, that's within the law, and that's for me. And actually, that's what I want to see.
The democracy.
Yeah, but that's what you should.
Can start a process to impeach a person who is not fit to hold office anymore. That is democracy.
That is democracy. That is democracy. If it is being pushed,
the amount of ignorance displayed in that particular statement is really very sad.
Mark,
you cannot say
I need to complete my thought process.
Voted in by the people of Kenya, done by the representatives of the people of Kenya who voted for them to oversight the governor of the county. When they make a decision, you cannot call it undemocratic. Yeah. If that is undemocratic, then every law passed by parliament is also undemocratic.
Okay, finish your thought.
Please allow me to complete, because people want to come here and start telling us that because the ODM MCAs were called by. We all know the kind of power and influence and bulldozing that Baba has. We know it. We know that he will summon his party members, and we know that he will tell them today I've woken up feeling like we need to impeach so and so. And we know that because of the dossiers that they hold with these elected leaders, some of them will be forced to go a certain direction. So yes, it is a democratic process, and it is a legal process, but look at the reasons why they are impeaching him. And when you follow the people, when you follow the MCAs who are actually summoned and called and told, now we are going to start this process, you will see that half of them, Raila Odinga has a dossier over them. It is like speak now, or we are going to remove this dossier and decide start a case against you on ABCD. But I also want to bring about the issue where Sonko came and said the issue that he had when he signed over power back to national government of certain dockets of the county. Remember, he came out and said he was actually duped, that he was under duress, that they gave him alcohol, but that he was not in his right state of mind.
Okay, Gloria.
So when you follow the story, I'm just trying to say, as we are even following the legal processes and the democratic processes, you know, at the end of the day, whatever you say, Sonko was voted in by people who still believe in his leadership.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, you've pointed out that there has to be reasons, and you have to look at those reasons. They have been outlined in the paper this morning. That has to be, they're saying they're accusing of gross violation of the law, committing a crime under international and national laws, lacking of capability to run the county. Basically, you could sum that up to incompetence. Joy, what do you make of this list that is being put forward by these ward representatives?
When you're trying to impeach a governor, there are basically three broad grounds: abuse of office, and some of those ones that you're talking about, incompetence, gross incompetence. The problem with the grounds that we have established for the removal of a governor are, whether by design or by whatever machinations, I don't know, they are intentionally vague, such
Very
that
vague.
as long as you can make the facts fit in the box, then the facts become what the box is.
Yes.
And that is my criticism of this entire process. Like, you remember when it was Waititu to stand to be impeached, it wasn't in doubt that Waititu may have been guilty of this and that. But what we saw in the Senate was basically a lynching. There's a very little time for facts, but there's a lot of time for mudslinging. And in my opinion, that is what weakens this process. Because there are times when you don't stick it to somebody in a way that you're able to actually even carry it on to court and prove the level of whether it is fraud or incompetence or abuse of office that you're accusing somebody of. So in this particular instance with Sonko, I'm hoping that the delay between buying time with NMS and now, whoever was doing the investigation or whatever they were trying to uncover with Sonko, that they've done their homework and that they actually have got something that is actionable. Because unfortunately, how the law works, if what you're doing is not actionable, is not enough to prove a case, then you do not have a case. We could be talking the way we talk in the streets. Everybody knows that Joy is corrupt. But if everybody knows Joy is corrupt, but nobody can prove that she is, guess what? Joy is not corrupt. Because that's how the law works. So in this particular instance, I looked at the dossier and I was like, okay, fine, this looks like they have a lot. But the problem, people have a lot of dossier. Once you start going through it with a fine-tooth comb, you may find everything falls through the seams. So I'm hoping this time around they've got, because one of the arguments I've made is you'd rather take one thing and prove it well and make it stick than come with 20 allegations that when they're put through the test, nothing survives.
All right.
So let's see how it unfolds in the coming weeks.
Trix, just a point to add in there. You know, democracy, there's true democracy where it really is about the people. It's about that voter and an issue that they are trying to push and achieve. But what Raila Odinga is doing is actually a mockery of democracy. And this is the risk we are going to have when we add those, I don't know how many MPs, 360? Because it will just be that we are actually having MPs who you can buy their votes. It's like a vote bank. So that is actually what I'm trying to say, that at the end of the day, if you follow the person who's pushing this initiative of impeaching Sonko, you will find that what they're doing, they're using their power and they're buying votes from these MCAs. And that's the risk that we also see when BBI pushes to have more MPs without really necessarily empowering them in terms of...
And if we would focus on this particular situation, I do believe the point that Mark Bijat is trying to bring to the table is that these reps are representing the people, and in that way this is democracy. Mark, you were in the middle of a thought earlier on. Please finish it.
Let me do a comparison, because sometimes to broaden our thought process, we can't just zoom in on one person and forget about the precedents that is set across the world. Now, Donald John Trump faced an impeachment motion last year in the American system. Now, he was impeached by Congress, and those letters of impeachment with solid grounds of the crime that he had committed were sent to the Senate. And what happened in the Senate is everyone except one in the Republican Party, the one exception was Mitt Romney, voted not to impeach Trump, and everyone in the Democratic Party voted to impeach Trump. Now, the people in the Democratic Party did have a caucus, and they did talk to their leaders, Pelosi in Congress and Chuck Schumer in Senate. And therefore, there is precedence to lay the case that, one, impeachments are both political and judicial, and they are done as to represent the people. And the people who lead parliamentary caucuses in both houses of the American system and the Kenyan system, and indeed anywhere in the world, happen to be the leaders of those parties.
Right.
It is indeed common practice that even the Labour Party in the UK, the leader will call his MPs to rally their support. There is nothing magical there. The problem with how we want to analyze and scrutinize things is we look at things and we decide we do not like Raila Odinga, and therefore if he swats a fly, then he must have done the worst thing possible.
Indeed.
The impeachment of Mike Sonko has to go through what is a quasi-judicial process and a quasi-political process, and if he's unable to master the numbers, even though there is, as Joy would put it, not heavy evidence against him, but he fails to win the political battle, then he fails. So he's got to play both games. He's got to play the politics and he's got to play the judicial angle. And at the end of the day, you cannot begrudge anyone for using the instruments given to us by the Constitution to arrive at a set goal. So we cannot then say that when William Ruto calls caucuses of very many different people, we clap for him, and then when Raila Odinga does a caucus of his own party, we villainize him. That's not fair. If you're going to sit here and analyze for the country, it behooves you to be balanced in your approach of how you inform the Kenyan public. Indeed, this is the debt that we owe the Kenyan people.
Okay. Now, let's move on swiftly to Uhuru's 930 billion shillings pandemic war chest, as it has been put on the Standard. We're told about stability. The government is raising that amount of money that I mentioned to cushion Kenyans against the effects of the coronavirus. The money will be invested in sectors that create jobs, stir growth, to reboot the economy, and according to a Treasury, this is according to a Treasury report. Joy, what do you make of this?
This is the third time I think we'll be seeing the president passing something that talks about a stimulus package for the economy post-COVID. And I think one of the places that we have talked about earlier is that, can we do an audit of what was done before, and we see what worked, what did not work, what went to waste, so that we have a picture of where to put our money. We don't have money to experiment with. We need money to actually spur growth. That is one. But secondly, it's a good thing that there is the thought of trying to jumpstart the economy. Because what has happened is we're in a situation like we had from the CS, you called the attorney the other day when he was talking about our debt, and he was talking about how we have to scale back on our expenditure, both in the national government and in the county governments. And we've had the talk about the IMF coming to town and looking at our debt portfolio and saying, you know what, you guys are in trouble.
Yes.
So we know right now we're in a place where we are cash strapped. And so when you see an economic stimulus package, the thing that you hope is that it actually translates into economic stimulus and is not just throwing good money after bad money. Because we're in a situation right now as a country where unless the private sector starts making decent money again, unless the informal sector starts making decent money again, government does not have money to bail the rest of us out. So our best hope is to make sure that the companies start up again, people get their jobs back, those who are in the informal sector get capital to jumpstart their economy, that there is a little bit of money circulating so that people can start spending. Because if people are still apprehensive about, oh, if you get COVID, you're on your own. So any little money that they have, they don't spend. If people don't spend, the economy doesn't grow. So it's a balance. And I think there is need for the government to just also come out and explain to Kenyans how and why some of these packages are important, and to be more transparent about where the money is injected. Because the problem has also been in the last 2-3 stimuluses, there's always a scandal or other that comes out of it. So people are skeptical that you're announcing a stimulus package, but what it really is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to swoop in, take Kenyans' money, Kenyan taxpayers' money, and disappear.
And take advantage. Joy, Gloria and Mark, hold on to your thoughts on this one. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we shall be digging deeper into this one, as well as the launch of the signature drive for the BBI referendum bill. Stay tuned to Morning Express.